Welcome to the Leading Together podcast. I'm Sean Lee, joined almost as always by my co-host Joe Olig. And this week we're honored to have Phyllis Snodgrass with us. Let me share a little bit about Phyllis before we jump into our conversation. She served as the president of 3 different chambers of commerce, including the Austin Chamber. She later went on to become the CEO of Habitat for Humanity in Austin, where she was recognized as the CEO of the Year by the Austin Business Journal. She currently serves as the chair of 3 different C12 groups, a faith-based peer community for CEOs and founders. And Phyllis has spent years leading at the highest levels of business and nonprofit leadership. And today we're going to unpack what she's learned along the way with all those amazing experiences. Phyllis, so good to see you. I know you well. I'm in one of those C12 groups with you. We'd love to just kick off by hearing like what's bringing you joy these days. Maybe it's a new book, a new habit, new relationship. What's giving you some good energy these days?
Oh my gosh. You know, truly, I have to admit, and I don't want to sound like a workaholic, but my work is giving me great joy these days
Mm,
because it's gotten to a place that I feel is healthy and
Mm,
vibrant and life-giving to me.
mm,
And that is a big joy because it wasn't there 3 years ago. That's a whole other story. And so to be in a place today where I get up and do the thing I love to do and then
mm.
enjoy life, you know, all of life, not just enjoying what I do after work. So it's been sweet. I always love to read books. I love to get outside. My favorite thing to do is grab a chainsaw and head out in the woods and cut stuff down and then burn it, which we can't because we're in a drought. But yeah, so that's kind of cutting back on my chainsawing these days. But yeah, I truly love my work. I love what I get to do.
That's great, Phyllis. You remind my brother has some land out in rural Missouri, and until I went out and visited him, I never had thought much about the joy of just like burning stuff because he just like
Yeah.
burns his trash, and he's got these big um, oil drums,
Yeah.
and the kids love it, and so life out. So you how much land do you have?
I think about 7 acres. It's
Okay.
just enough to where we don't see anybody. We got a beautiful view of the hills and it's very peaceful. But yeah, it's fun to be able to just kind of be on the land. Part of it is still wild and, walk through the trails that we've made and just really enjoy
Mm,
nature.
that's really great. And maybe I know you're an avid reader, so what book are you reading right now?
Well, I'm always got the Bible on my bedside table. I start with that in the morning, but I'm reading Digital Body Language right now.
Hmm.
So, yeah, which has been really interesting. I mean, some of it seems elementary, and then some of it is like, oh, because I think there's so much has changed in the way we communicate, and I think there's a lot of folks that don't know the rules around it, and then we can go quickly to assuming things just
Mm,
because of the modes of communication. So it gives you a lot of great examples and talks about what works and what doesn't, and what to do, what not to do, and how to express emotion. Um, as a woman, I think we put too many exclamation points on things. I used to be that
mm,
person that would send the email that was full of them, and I guess it's annoying to other people. So I learned
mm,
not to do that. But apparently, in digital communication, that's healthy because it expresses emotion in a space where you don't get to see a
mm.
face and see emotion. And so, just some of those
mm.
insights have been really cool.
So Phyllis, you're telling me that when my mom doesn't include an exclamation mark, she's not mad at me?
That's right. That's right. But doesn't it feel that way? Yeah. And then
It
if they
does.
use caps, it's even worse.
Yeah, right? I'm an exclamation guy. I am like all the time exclamation marks, and sometimes I realize I'm overdoing it, so I
Yeah.
have to
Yeah.
sort of pull back. But I love them when they come to me, and when
Oh,
they
yeah.
don't, sometimes I am wondering like, is
Yeah.
everything okay?
Is this a sarcastic
I
tone? Yeah, you read into
yeah,
it. So yeah, it's been a healthy read. I'm enjoying it.
love that.
That's really great. This is one of those things that I find myself thinking about in a very fleeting way and then
Yeah.
quickly moving on. So I'm almost scared of what might happen if I were to think too much about it.
Well, I think that was one of their points is we move so fast that we don't
Mhm.
think about the impact of what we're sending.
Yeah.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
that a text or some sort of an instant message not communicated correctly can actually do so much more harm than good.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And we all have sent those emails where we replied all and we shouldn't have,
Mm-hmm.
or,
Mm-hmm.
BCC'd the wrong person, or
Mm-hmm.
somebody replies to the BCC, which is
Yeah.
horrendous, or, and so it kind of works through all that stuff as well.
Joe, this has me actually thinking about one of the exercises we do with teams, Phyllis, is this like working together wheel where we share some of our
Yeah.
tendencies and preferences and
Yeah.
collaboration. And I hadn't thought about this conversation in that context, but one of the things, one of the things we're asking people to do is like kind of what frustrates you and gets you,
Yeah. Yeah.
going a little bit. And one of the things that frustrates me is if I'll share something that I think is meaningful to me and someone will respond back over text or Slack with just like an emoji,
Yeah.
right? And I'll
Or
be like,
worse, K.
ah, or what?
Just
Hey.
K.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yeah. It's like I just took a moment to like share something, and you're just like thumbs up. It's-
I'm
right,
Yeah.
acknowledging your presence. That's about all that tells me.
right. Yeah, right.
We Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sean, I thought
Um,
you were for sure gonna go to, the what was it? Digital Body Language?
Mhm.
That's the name of the book, as a great content source for the organizational consultant sitcom that we've
oh,
been drafting up.
yeah,
Because I could see
yeah.
some really good content coming out of some of those moments where the whole episode is about the email that, was just K and how that just blew up the entire team for the next 3
I
Yes.
weeks.
think I think you've actually got a marketing strategy hatching
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Well,
it.
we always talk about this, Phyllis, but we're not convinced that there's a very large audience for the organizational consultant sitcom. Other than
I
other,
don't know. I think
maybe
I
there is.
think if it
Maybe
were on TikTok or Instagram, you
that's true.
probably would have an audience.
That's true.
There
Well,
you go.
well, I'm sure that'll rise up our priority list 10 years from now or so.
Love it.
Well, awesome, Phyllis. Thanks for checking into our conversation here. You and I have had some really. I've learned a lot from you and been really curious about the way in which you brought your team together at Habitat. And I know you were really intentional about some of the things that you did as you moved into the role as CEO. And I'd love to hear like what are some of the first things that you did to intentionally bring that team together as a unit.
Yeah. I'll just say it stems from years of stepping into organizations that were kind of broken, because that was kind of my specialty. Wasn't just to lead nonprofits, but to specifically lead nonprofits where the CEO had been fired or there was a big hot mess there to be cleaned up. And so
Mm,
it had just got progressive. I got known about doing that. So the next person who had a mess would call and say, come here, clean us up. And so that became a 30-year career. And so when I got there, I had experience going
Mhm.
into organizations that were broken, going into broken teams, and starting to figure out what to rebuild. But it was the biggest team I'd had yet.
mm,
And I felt like the organization with the most potential to do a whole lot of good if we could get it right. So
mm,
I did want to be not only extremely intentional, but not repeat any mistakes I'd ever made in the past or that I had seen in organizations I had been in. And and when you step into those spaces, if it's broken, there's often silos. Um,
mm.
I mean, that's probably more the norm than not anyway, if you're not intentional. So you
Yeah.
guys see that a lot. And so definitely there was some silo situations. It was also a situation where a lot of people had left. Um, some very young people had been promoted. And so one of the guys there who stayed about 3 more months, we've still been friends, and he reminds me, it's not about you. I was done and I couldn't, I just couldn't do anymore.
Mm,
But he said, it was like uh, there had been like a battle on the battlefield, and he felt like, you know, that the leaders had been like shooting bayonets at the leadership team and the staff. And then they had an interim situation, and he felt like, well, then they just picked up the guns and started shooting the wounded. And that was the way he
Yeah.
described
wow.
the atmosphere I stepped into.
Oh my gosh.
And when you get that, and my first month there, knowing I had come into kind of a broken situation, was my first priority was to meet individually one-on-one with all like 45 employees.
Mhm.
Mm,
And so I came very early December and just spent the whole month meeting with everybody one-on-one. Then moved into meeting with the board because you're down and up, and making sure I, understood where they were coming from. And as I'm getting the lay of the land in that first 90 days, starting to try to establish, trust and rapport.
Mhm.
Once I figured out how bad things were and where the pain points are, started figuring out where the silos were and where the issues were. It was like, you recognize there were just people that weren't communicating well. And then I just started with offsites with the senior team every quarter where we would
Mm.
start to address things
Mhm.
like communications and we started with that, tell me one thing you like about this person. Everybody goes around the room, and then one thing you think would improve, and when everybody
Mm.
goes around the room, and really kind
Wow.
of getting some stuff out on the table that they weren't willing to discuss in the past.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um,
Phyllis,
and
can
then
can I
and
can
then
I
kind of
pause?
used maybe my mothering stuff, the two
Yeah.
that wouldn't get along, that had finally uncovered this. I like, you two go stand in the corner and stare at each other until you figure out how to talk together. But
W
just starting to break down some of that. So it's just a process.
Yeah. I'd love to, like, lean in a little bit more
Yeah.
on what I heard you say if I heard you right, you were doing, like, a group feedback protocol where people
Mhm. Mhm.
in the team were sharing some affirmation and strengths and also some opportunities for improvement, but
That's
you were
right.
doing that while everybody was hearing that as people
Yes.
shared it
I
about
mean, it
each
was a
other.
it was a leadership team of 8, I think, at the
Yeah.
time,
Mhm.
plus myself. But yes, like everybody in the room, I felt like these guys had made it this far. They were frustrated. They needed to see me leading. They
Yeah.
needed to gain confidence. They needed to see where my heart was. I let them start with me.
Mm.
Mhm.
They'd been with me a few months at that point. So, like,
Mhm.
we started with them telling me and believe me, they had no issue telling me what they thought was working and what wasn't. But I felt like that began this process. And I think after we did a lot of exercises at that one, kind of trying to dive deep into getting to know each other better and what our why is, why we're here. Made them all watch that Simon Sinek video, why,
Mhm.
and we kind of
Mm.
walked through some exercises on that. And then we started moving into next session on mission, vision,
Mhm.
then core values, and trying to get everybody on the same page, and then moving to SWOT analysis the next
Mhm.
session, and competitive landscape. So, but over time, just starting to build on a framework of building a team, dealing with their interrelational issues, and getting them to think like, we're here for this bigger thing.
Yeah.
So how do we, if we're going to come together for this bigger thing, this inspiring thing, these are things we have to figure out, and getting everybody to buy into that. One of my favorite sayings was, if they write it, they will underwrite it. And
Mm.
so,
Yeah.
I use that a lot with board, but it's also true with staff. Like, I don't like telling the staff this is the way it's going to be. I mean, I had ideas of what I wanted the core values and the direction to go, but I wanted it to be theirs.
I love that mantra. I'm gonna steal that from you.
Please, I'm sure I stole it from somebody,
That's
but it's
good.
been mine long enough, so
Mm,
I'll claim it now.
we have a similar tenant in belief at Six Levers. It's not quite as sticky and memorable as that, so I'm gonna borrow that from you. Earlier you mentioned the silos, right? You've
Mhm,
worked at, many organizations. Most of the organizations that we work with, there are silos, and they're
mhm.
they're pretty significant. Um, what have you learned about these silos? Why are they so common? How do you
Well,
see
I
that?
it was interesting because the last organization before I was at Habitat, I mean, it was a great organization, but we definitely had silos. Everybody would admit to it.
Yeah.
And we called our different departments divisions. And I remember going to the CEO because I was
Ah.
COO at the time, and I remember going to him saying,
Mm.
"There's a reason why they're called divisions. Yes, we're divided. Like, we should, if we were all aligned and moving in the same direction, think how much more we could accomplish than when
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
spend this internal time fighting and trying to position ourselves against each other when we're all trying to achieve the same thing, which is make this community stronger."
Mhm.
And his response to me was, "Well, I think competition's good."
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
that was very insightful to me because I was like,
Mm.
why would you let this environment continue? And in his mind, that competition was making them better. And
Yeah, it
I'm
was
like, I don't think so.
division by design.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So in that case, by design, right? Almost
Yeah.
deliberate.
Yeah,
Okay.
someone didn't want to put the effort in, and I think it's what was it that Henry Cloud said? Dr. Henry Cloud said, "You whether and I'm going to totally butcher this, but whether the things are going really well or really poorly, you 100% are in control of that, and own it.
You're ridiculously in charge.
You are
Yeah.
ridiculously in charge." Thank you for remembering. Okay. And I think that's true. I think
Yeah.
so, you have to own that, and I don't think some leaders realize the impact that they're having on their people and how much they're ridiculously in charge. Or maybe they do, and maybe they kinda like it, and maybe there's a fear of getting that close because it's hard to be that close as a leader and that vulnerable.
Yeah. Were there, I'd be interested to know, given in this case, they were very intentional about sort of, we've got these divisions and they're for a purpose. We want to create competition across division. I mean,
Yeah.
did you do then deliberate work to sort of reverse those, or was there anything specific that you did to sort of create a new way where there was
Yeah, I
more?
tried.
Yeah.
That was what that it's those learning moments. Sometimes you think you're placed in a position so you can go someplace else and take the learnings. Because I also reached the wall of how much I could change internally, but
Yeah.
I finally got us to an offsite retreat
Hmm.
where I brought in someone I really trusted and valued. Wish you guys had been around, I would have had you. And she came and, she saw what was going on. She totally affirmed what I was thinking, and she pressed and, hit the pain points and got it wa sadly, sometimes it's gone on too long. You have to realize that if you open the wound,
Hmm.
it's gonna be bad, and I
Hmm.
don't think I realized just
Hmm.
how deep some of that stuff was, and so
Hmm.
there were people crying. I mean,
Mm.
grown adults,
Hmm.
that were leaders in the community crying. 2 people quit that weekend,
Wow.
Wow.
so they couldn't take anymore. So I definitely was onto something and definitely opened the door. I just didn't realize the long-term impact that was gonna have, because I was so desperate, like, "If I can't change this, why am I here?"
Hmm.
Like, you just
Yeah.
want me to change the superficial stuff. You want us to get more money in the door. You want us to, look good on the outside. But I feel like this environment inside's killing everybody, and we
Yeah.
can't keep going like that. And yeah,
That's powerful, Phyllis. I
that
don't know.
that was. I don't know if I actually delivered what they were looking for, but
Yeah.
Well, I think what you're reminding me here is that, we have such amazing responsibility as leaders in our roles, and sometimes an opportunity, right? And sometimes
Mhm.
what we find in these moments where we open up these opportunities for emotion to come out, we don't necessarily always we can't always accurately predict if the space and container that we're creating is going to be able to hold
Mhm.
all that comes out. What it makes me think is in an environment where that's not happening much at all, it's probably a much more likely that you won't be able to hold everything that comes out in that moment
Yeah.
because it's been stored up for so long,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
But if we can take an approach to say, like, we have a much more frequent and regular way of doing that so that we don't have to
Mhm.
have this like giant you know I'm picturing like a grain silo now of just like
Yeah. Yeah.
emotions that have been
Just
storing
all.
up for
That's right.
years. Like, you
Mhm.
stepped into that environment, right? But for those of us
Yeah.
that are stewarding it now, how do we take that as a warning to say, how do we provide opportunities for these things to be aired and for us to work through them as a team so they don't become something that when they finally do come out, the drama and emotion of it is almost
It
too
can be
big to deal with.
disastrous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think, I literally walked into the habitat assignment with that
That
impression
learning.
still on me, very
Mm.
raw, and what's nice is there was a healing for all of us in that. It was painful at the time, and it did some
Mhm.
disruptive work within that organization, but every one of those people that sat around that table, I still consider a dear friend, and we still
Mm,
stay connected. And people have moved on; they've come back into the community, and I couldn't be more proud of any of it. I think we all learned from it.
Mhm.
mhm.
So I mean, I'll accept that. Like that was in the long run probably better for all of us that it happened,
Yeah.
but in the moment and for a while, it did some damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe moving on to our next question here. What do you
Yeah.
think it takes to build a high performing, connected senior leadership team? Right, as someone who you were
Mm.
just talking, you really were intentional about trying to bring this team together at Habitat, and you've got all these incredible experiences, on what you learned over the years. What do you think are like the critical ingredients to really build cohesion and connection amongst a senior leadership team?
That's such a good question. I
I mean, just from
think,
your experience.
yeah, I'm thinking back to um, the importance of really understanding people and what motivates them,
Mm,
Mhm.
because
yeah,
it's not a cookie cutter approach. Everyone isn't
yeah.
motivated the same way. So
Mhm,
understanding what matters to them.
Mhm.
I think getting everybody aligned around a shared vision is critical.
Mhm.
I think too
Mhm.
often people put a team together and just tell them what the vision is and tell them this is what their assignment is, and they're just expected to do it. But if they don't own it, and if they don't understand the why behind it and it doesn't become theirs, it's really hard to move into a super high performing space. There's going to be a
mhm,
level of distrust. I think it requires a lot of vulnerability on the part of the leader.
mm,
To be able to listen to criticism from people that report to you, because and I would tell my people all the time. I was like, I am going to do the very best I can. I'm not always going to get it right. I need your feedback. But
yeah.
you can't just say that. I think we had a C12 lesson on that this month. A door that's open does not mean you have an open door. Yeah,
Mm,
you've
Mhm.
got it's a communication framework. You've got to communicate with people in a way that they know they can give you feedback back.
mhm,
And you have to address things when you see them.
Mhm.
mm,
That I think that if I could pinpoint something I wish I had done better over the years, it would be to address issues quicker.
Mhm.
Many of us that love people, believe in people, we just want to believe we can either change them or move them to a healthier space. And sometimes you can't, and you do more damage to try to fix one person than to think about the health of the team.
mm,
Mhm.
mhm. Yeah, I think Joe and I have probably seen, oh, maybe I'll speak for myself. I know I've seen a lot of that with leaders who, especially leaders that I think work in, are doing, like, more missional work. There's something about the heart of a leader that brings them to that space that I think can have them skew, I mean, one of the things you said in the beginning, which was so wonderful, and we would agree with Phyllis, is like just seeking to understand the uniqueness and different way the team members are wired, and I think that's really good. But I some of my observation has been the leader that is naturally wired that way is oftentimes not naturally wired to bring a high bar of accountability,
Mm,
Mm.
that's
Mhm.
right.
right?
That's
And they've
right.
got to work.
There's definitely a force tension to force yourself, because as a leader, you have a responsibility to do some things with that team that you aren't going to like doing and aren't comfortable with, and that
Mhm,
um, some leaders will try to delegate it away, and some will create spaces where they let unhealthiness fester because they just don't want to spend time in that space.
Yeah.
And I have seen it in for profits and in nonprofits. I mean, um, I think it has a lot to do with the heart of the leader and
mhm.
their desire. If they really believe in people and want to give them every possible chance, um, the bad side of that is a lot of times they let that go too far.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true, and I think I know I can say I've been guilty of this in my career as someone who, has probably their default is to lean into maybe too many chances, right?
Mhm,
Is
mhm.
that what my reflection on that over the course of my career has been that I did not extend the same level of empathy and compassion to the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Like I had an unhealthy indexing for the one at the
Right.
cost of the many, right?
Yeah.
And if I applied that principle to the whole team more objectively, I would have been able to say, there's a greater cost here that I'm not stewarding well, right?
Uh,
Because I'm doing too much to save the one person.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's a hard thing. It's definitely a hard thing to wrestle with. It doesn't just come naturally. And, and it's easier to see it somewhere else than it is in your own.
Yeah.
Like you can always make excuses for your own. You can see it clearly someplace else, and then
Yeah.
right in front of you, you can have it and just not, oh, but
Did you have any experiences on any of your teams, Phyllis, where a dynamic like this, where someone was either underperforming, consistently, or they just weren't a culture fit, and instead of the team had gotten to a level of strength that instead of you having to notice it, like the rest of the team was also noticing it, right? So it was more of a like the team was so unified and strong that the person who was either underperforming or not fit, like it became like the team was taking some ownership and either help trying to bring this person up or coach them or give them feedback.
I don't. I mean, I think individually, yes, and that's probably someplace I could have leaned in more. Over time, I moved. I think with a leader, you bring your skill sets into an organization, and you'll apply yourself to fix everything you can and to do the best job you can. And over time, I learned that really my more primary job. Yes, I had knowledge and experience that could help, but my primary job was to raise up the leaders that could do that. And to your point, as you're growing the leaders within your own organization that will lead past you being there, um, you can instill in them, how to deal with these situations and build that strength up and that resilience in them. And I think it was for a long time. I always just felt like it all rested on my shoulders, and that's an exhausting place to be. And
Yeah.
it's so much more fulfilling when you start to understand that we're gonna go a lot further if I spend my time grooming you than if I spend my time trying to do it all.
Yeah.
But when things get tight, what do they normally do? They try to reach back in, grab the stuff, and say, "I'll do this."
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Maybe to shift gears to a new question here, Phyllis. What was a challenge you faced in your role as CEO that was unexpected, and how did you navigate it?
Oh, that's a good question. There were so many challenges. There was challenges in the community. I thought we're providing a great service, so everybody's going to want this.
Mhm.
And I would sometimes be surprised that the neighborhoods we were going to try to put a project in weren't too thrilled about it, or
Yeah.
um, just the level of like I love affordable housing as long as it's not in my backyard. So it was like,
Mhm.
having to deal with the politics and how personal that could get and how literally spirited people could be over something I felt like was just a very simple black and white. This is what we're doing. This is good. This is good for the community. Like
Mhm.
that surprised me. Um, I've always been surprised by leaders, like when you're out recruiting leaders in the community to serve on a board. I mean, some are so stellar and selfless, and
Mm.
and you're just like, how do you have the time and energy to do all that you do and do this? Like it would be so admirable. And others would portray themselves that way, but behind the scenes you were seeing that it was really all about themselves and about,
Mm.
what they were getting out of it and their promotion and of themselves. And so I don't know, it's just being in those situations, you kinda get into a window into people, and so I always learn a lot by observing people. It feels
Mhm.
like now I read books that confirm things I already kinda figured out 'cause
Yeah, that's right.
'cause you just kinda study the people and how they behave, and you're like, "Okay, I like that person, I wanna be more like that."
Mhm. Mhm. If you go back to the first example, is that another moment where part of that navigation or that, at least that reflection is if people are involved in the decision of bringing this new, housing to this community, then they may be more engaged. Was that part of your lesson
So
learned there? Or
isn't it funny how we can preach something and then not apply it ourselves? That
yeah,
whole, if they write it, they will
Yeah.
underwrite it. I
yeah,
should have applied to that situation.
yeah,
It was foundational for me for years, but this was a
Mm.
case where I felt like I knew best.
yeah,
And if I had approached it correctly, I could have gotten them to where they also felt like that was the right thing to do, I think, and that they owned that decision and wanted it. But instead, I put on my superwoman cape and flew into the neighborhood with my solution set, and I didn't let them craft the solution. And I think
yeah,
Yeah.
that was a miss on my part.
You know, Phyllis, one of the things that you're reminding me of here that I think you and I both have a unique experience in with the NIMBY.
Mhm.
NIMBY is, not in my
Yeah.
backyard. And, I used to work on homeless issues and, um, I w there's maybe like a meeting design lesson that I learned, in getting community input and feedback that the first time I did this, um, we didn't have the right people with the right experience to design this community input meeting, and it turned into like very angry
Oh,
groupthink, and
yeah.
it was not productive at all.
Mm.
We the next time we learned from that, and the next time we did it, we brought in someone who had more experience with this, and we did something really simple, which I think applies to the ways we can facilitate big meetings as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was we had some topical discussions, broke them out at tables, and just had leaders share out some of their ideas, and it was super productive,
Yeah.
right? It was
Wow.
like we got good input. They had ideas. We told them how we were going to work their ideas in, and it was just like night and day different from like this open town hall where someone would say something and then people would start screaming and yelling.
Yeah,
So,
we have moved into a point in time in our country, and it may be, I mean, it's probably, you can go back in history. People always been yelling at each other, um but we have moved into this space where when you go into a certain place where you think there's a certain level of decorum and
mm,
reverence, and it's going to go a certain way, like that is not something you can take for granted. I mean,
yeah,
I spoke at a city council meeting one night. I remember we were there till like 2 in the morning, and there were protesters outside, and the news was there, and there were people banging on the windows. I mean, it was kind of scary though. Like a
yeah,
literally paddy wagon came up, and people were hauled and put into it, and those are moments where you're like, this has gotten out of hand,
yeah,
that something needs to give here. Um, and so we live in a climate where if you don't invite those voices in, and if you don't listen, you really do set yourself up for that kind of really just kind of unhealthy
yeah,
conversation.
yeah, absolutely. Well, we wanted to give you a little bit of time today to also uh, talk about your thoughts on the power of peer groups, Phyllis.
Mm,
Obviously, you're in
mm,
the phase of your career right now, or this is what you're doing and what you chose to
mhm.
do with your career. So we know you believe in the power of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, we have a lot of CEOs and executives that listen to this that might feel a little lonely at times. So curious, like, why do you think it's so important for CEOs and founders to have some peers to meet with and collaborate with?
I sought out a peer group, so I was actually a member of C12 where I'm a chair before I stepped in to the role of being a chair. And over the years, I would always put myself in some sort of a peer group, even if it was within the industry. If I was in the Chamber of Commerce industry, there was a lot of collaboration in that space, and I would served at the Institute for Organization Management. I went through the training, and then I graduated. Then I served on the Board of Regents and would go back every year. And for me, I found the most profound moments of the aha moments, the learning moments came when I wasn't in the office,
mm,
Mm,
when I got away. And so I early on sought out places where I could go and spend time with other people doing something either similar to what I was doing or at a level that I was doing it, where I could throw out the things I'm thinking about, hear about what they're struggling with, and just learn and apply myself. Also go to classes and lessons and things that will just like brush up my skills. But it was
Mm.
in those moments, often the nuggets I would take away. I mean, the whole week would be wonderful, or the whole experience would be wonderful, or the whole day would be wonderful. But when I walked away, it was a conversation I had with someone. It was an
Mhm.
idea that was generated, but
Mhm.
it happened because I stepped away. And
Yeah.
so early on in my career, I just defined for myself that I had to take time away from the business to work on the business.
Mm.
That the best ideas I would ever get were not going to happen sitting at that desk.
Mhm.
And then if I just sat there, I would just keep doing what we were doing. I would not step out of my comfort zone. And so I would seek that out. But I found that peer groups uniquely, because they're all CEOs, they're all leaders, they're all, presidents, owners, whatever, but leading their organization. They don't really have anybody. They have maybe a board above them, but below them, everyone's reporting to them, and so you really just you can't talk to your peer in the next room, because that person works for you and
Yeah.
reports to you, and you evaluate them annually, and so there's reasons why you need a space that's safe to figure things out. And so when I got to Habitat and I didn't have that, I was like, I need to find something, and I need an intentional space. I called it my business Sabbath. So it was my day
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
month where I got out of the business to work on the business. I went away. The team knew that I was offline that day, and I
Yeah.
was, I was, and so, the way I expressed it to them is, I'm going to work on myself, improving myself as a leader.
Mhm.
I get my best ideas when I'm not sitting in the office. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to carve this out from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I just ask you to respect that time. You can only interrupt if it's an emergency. And then we had to define what an emergency was.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that to me has been so incredible. But the cool thing I learned about peer groups going into this space, and not being in peer groups that were just people in my industry, because I think so often I hear it a lot in tech. Well, I need to be around other tech people.
Mhm.
But most of the issues I see the companies having, they think it's a money issue.
Mhm.
They think it's a sales issue. I mean, sometimes it is. They need better sales training. They need better systems, whatever. But a lot of times it's a people issue. It's the
Mhm.
Mhm.
people, it's the way they're running it, and they don't see it. And
Mhm.
unless they can, and so getting in a group with other CEOs who are not in the same industry you're in.
Mhm.
I always say it's like taking your watch off and telling you what time it is in a different language and then handing it back to you. It's like
Mhm.
they literally can give you a solution that they in their industry have figured out,
Mhm.
that you in your industry haven't even dealt with yet,
Yeah.
and so they're like, no, we're light years ahead of you on this. This is how we do
Mhm.
XYZ. And you're like, I think I could actually apply that. And so
Yeah.
that cross learning
Mhm.
of the CEOs of what's working in different industries, I think also just elevates the whole group.
Yeah.
Does that
What
make
would
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
it it makes me think. I think we and you and us face a
Mhm.
similar scenario when we are, um, I don't know, pitching, selling
Yeah,
what
yeah.
what we do,
Mhm.
to people, and that we often are met with a mindset of, "I just don't have time for that,"
Oh,
Mhm.
right?
absolutely.
Whether it's a day away, a month like you're describing, or in our case, some dedicated time over the course of several months to step back
Mhm,
and
mhm.
work on strengthening the systems that are going to build high performing teams, clear vision, strong systems. You know, how do you? What would you say to helping leaders to over that might feel that right now? Listen, they might heard you say that and might be like, "Sounds great, but I don't have
I
a
don't have
day
the
a
time.
month.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can't do that." Like, what would you say to that leader who feels that
You
way?
know, it doesn't always work, because I do think you have to there is a getting to a point of desperation that needs to happen. You have
Yeah,
to get to that point that, hey, I need something to change.
Yeah.
yeah.
But I remember sitting with someone who's on my peer group now, and it took over 18 months to get this person in the room. And the first was,
Mm,
I'd love to do this. This sounds like exactly what I need. I don't have the time.
Mhm.
And then 6 months later, really appreciate you sending me that. Excited about what you're doing. I would love to do this. I don't have the time. And this went on and on and on. And
mhm,
finally, at about 18 months, we were having coffee and I was listening to what was going on. And I was just like, okay, I'm gonna push back. Probably should have done it sooner, but I think I was waiting for that breaking point. And
mm,
I said, so what's changed in the last 18 months? I mean,
Mhm.
have you actually fixed any of this? You said you needed more time. You don't have enough time. Like, do you think you're going to get more time? This is going to get better if you keep doing the same
Right.
thing you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm gonna challenge you to say, I think you need to step out of the business to work on it. And the only
Yeah.
way you're gonna get the time you're craving is if you take the time to get it.
Yeah.
And when that was a light bulb moment for the person, and they were like, I think you're right. I'll come
Yeah.
next month. And then they joined.
Well, and I think a big part of the decision too, I think it always starts with time, maybe budget, can they
Hmm.
afford it? But it also comes down to this question of like, will it be worth it?
Yeah.
So maybe actually that's the outcome of, or the product of time and money. Um,
Yeah.
but this question of like, will it be worth it? And I think the way that we oftentimes see it is that it's just as much about how that changes just how you show up in your day
Hmm.
to day, as
Hmm.
much as it is about this unlock that you generate for the business, right?
That's
Sort of
right.
very specifically. I sort of think about it more like a great exercise routine, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
By
That's good.
having a great exercise routine, it doesn't mean all of a sudden we have ran a marathon, right, the next day, or all of a sudden we're the healthiest person in the world. But we're showing up in our work and in our family with a heightened degree of just health and wellness and clarity. And
Yeah.
I think when you think about these peer groups or these even leadership development, maybe even for a more finite period of time, um, a huge part of the answer of, will it be worth it is how's it going to shift how you show up on a day-to-day basis? How do you see that? I heard you mention a little bit earlier about, just the degree to which it's, you've seen it change people and in that
Mhm.
way. Um, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
I I I get a front row seat at watching people grow. I think I saw some of it as a member of a group with other people, but I see it more as the facilitator because you're also their coach and
Yeah.
you're also
Mm.
spending that one-on-one time in between sessions. And the growth I have seen in how people view their lives more holistically. It's not
Mhm.
just about the numbers. I mean, you can't being a successful CEO is not success at the abandonment of everything else that's important. So like getting
Yeah.
the right priorities, the family, the exercise, fitness, health,
Mhm.
nutrition, all of that has to be in place. And seeing them grow as leaders, like you push back on them on when you feel like, okay, the way they're handling this isn't good, and they accept it and they lean into it and they ask other people for help, and then just over time you see them transform. And
Yeah.
I can be with I even have some people that we've only been meeting with a few months now, and I've already seen so much movement.
Mm.
Yeah.
And them being willing to at least identify these are things that scare me,
Mm.
but I'm going to lean in this space. Will you help me?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I have found the more I push back on people, the more they like it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
I have a one of my members, and I doubt he'll listen to this, but if he does, he'll recognize himself. But I was at a lunch the other day, and he introduced me as his C12 chair, and he said, "Yeah, she busts my chops every month," and he was so proud of it, and I was so proud of it because
Yeah.
that for me is not my naturally comfortable place.
Mm.
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 I'm great at the affirming, but the
Yeah.
busting the chops part, I have had to lean into. But when you realize that's what leaders are craving, because no one gives them good feedback.
That's right.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
they're craving somebody to be honest with them
Mm.
in a safe place.
Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like that's a space where if we can do more of that,
Mhm.
it really
Mhm.
helps people grow.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that, Phyllis. And maybe to answer my own question here from something that I feel like has been a really significant learning for Joe and I with our business has been, um, this is gonna sound simpler to say than do, but we decided when we started this business that we were gonna build in some constraints to how we worked,
Mm.
Mhm.
which was for me totally different than my last business. I
Yeah.
didn't do that for my last business. I told myself things like, well, when we reach this level, then I'll be able to pay myself market rate. And
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
can't really take a week off now because we're in this phase right now, but we'll get there one day, right?
Mhm.
Versus saying, no, we're going to build those things in from day one and
Yeah,
build everything around it. Right.
brilliant.
Because they're so important.
Mhm.
And I do acknowledge that's easier to say than do, but I think like just the conviction and mindset around that's the way that we're going to do things. I just for speaking from our own experience has been really, it's been really important and really changed the way we operate.
I think it's so important. And I love hearing that y'all are doing that.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if you're listening, experiment with this because I do think,
Yeah.
Sean, it's one of these things where you have to kind of see it to believe it.
Right. Totally.
It sounds like pie in the sky, like, well, we couldn't really, create that constraint. Like that would never work, or we would never follow through. Well, try it, and I
Totally.
think that through some of that experimentation, we've been able to see just how valuable that can be.
Well,
Yeah.
and there's so
Yeah.
many good business books out there that really, talk about growing a business and, building your business, growing it. And they really kind of center on that. You have to
Mm,
figure out what makes financial sense. You have to figure out how if it doesn't support you and you don't see a sustainable path to getting there,
mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
there's
Yeah.
probably something wrong with the business model. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And starving yourself isn't going to make that work,
Right.
Right.
but people
Yeah.
just don't think through that. I think my default for years, and I'm sure you've heard this if you didn't say it, was I'll sleep after I die.
Yeah.
Um, and that is such an unhealthy way to
Yeah.
approach business, but it's just rewarded in society. And so we
Yeah.
have to
Right.
you have to build those constraints not only around what you're going to make, but how much time you're going to spend doing it.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Phyllis, our last question is one that we ask everybody that comes on the podcast,
Okay.
and it's for you to think about the best teammate you've ever had, or one of the best teammates you've
Oh,
ever had.
oh.
And as you think about that person that comes to mind, what characteristics did they embody? Why are they the person that you're thinking of right now? You can name them if you want to. You don't have to.
Mhm.
Most importantly, we wanna hear from you. Like what were those unique characteristics that made them such a meaningful teammate to you?
Um, a teammate, it's probably a blend of a few, um, that tells me the honest truth, that doesn't hold back.
Mm,
Maybe not in a group setting in front of 50 people, but,
yeah.
but, that I can count on to be honest, that,
Mm,
that brings forward new ideas, that
Mm,
that is not afraid to share, "Hey, I've got an idea of a better way to do things," and is willing to kind of be bold there. That's very meaningful to me. And that really that kind of joins me in
mm,
caring for the organization, because when you're at that level, your team can either feel like needy children or real partners with you. And
mhm.
when I have people like that I really felt like we're a part, I can send them here and I know they're going to represent us well. I can give them assignment and I can trust they'll either do it or they'll find somebody that can do it. And that, like, there's that level of trust.
Mhm.
It's so incredible, and it does make getting up and going to work a joy when you have people like that in your life.
I love that. Sounds like you're saying it's better to lead together than lead alone.
I think so. I think there might be a good book there.
Good idea.
It's a it's a good idea.
Speaking of good books, I love y'all's book. I think it's
Oh,
wonderful.
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much thanks for reading it. Thanks for saying that, Phyllis. Thanks
it's
for
true.
being a champion of it. Um, is there anything you would like to promote while we have you here? And also, where can our listeners find you if they want to follow you or follow up with you?
Absolutely. Well, I am very active on LinkedIn, so I am limiting my social media pushes these days. I think we all have to draw boundaries around what we can and can't just stomach, but that is a space where I'm at, and put some thought leadership pieces out, and it's easy to contact me there. Um, I mean, I absolutely love working with CEOs and business owners, and if someone in the greater Austin area in particular is struggling with some issues and just wants to figure out where they can find resources to help them. If I can't help them, I'll try to find somebody that can, and the
Yeah.
resources that can. Um, but I love the work you guys are doing. I think you are doing a fabulous job. I have heard such rave reviews about how you show up for teams and how much they grow as a result of
Mm,
spending time with you. And because that means a lot to me, I applaud you for what you're doing.
Mm. Thank you so much, Phyllis. Well, I deeply respect you as a leader, and we're so grateful to have you on today. And you're also lucky that your name is Phyllis Snodgrass, so people should be able to find you easily on,
Yeah.
on LinkedIn, right? As
There you
opposed
go.
to Sean Lee.
There's not a lot of us out there.
You'll probably easily be able to find Phyllis on LinkedIn. Phyllis, thanks again. And for those listening here, thanks for tuning in this episode of Leading Together. If you found it valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, or leave a review. It helps more leadership teams discover these conversations. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, or drop a comment with your thoughts. And you can always find more resources at sixlevers.co, including you can sign up for our newsletter that we ship every Tuesday morning. Thanks a lot.